Hey guys, our devotion today comes from Isaiah chapter 7, verses 10 through 17, and chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. But before we get into that, I want to remind you today, let's be in prayer for the Hazlett family, for Lonnie and Cindy, and Kevin Cooper. So we get to go back to the Old Testament today to see some of these prophecies about our coming Messiah. Some classic Christmas scriptures here. Isaiah prophesied, like many of the prophets, during the time that God was warning Israel and Judah that they needed to return, or else he was going to judge them. And Judah is under attack in chapter 7 here, but they're not under attack from the Assyrians. Judah is under attack from Israel, from their sister nation here. Israel has teamed up with the king of Syria, and they decided they're going to go down and bully Judah around, and they're going to try to take over and set up their own king. So we see that Judah is pretty anxious over this in chapter 7. The people are worried and upset about what's going to happen here. Is Israel going to come down and overthrow us? And so God sends Isaiah to the king of Judah, King Ahaz, to tell him, you don't have to be worried. I am going to take care of you. I'm going to be with you, and this attack is going to come to nothing. And we see actually God do something pretty special here. He says, you don't just have to take my word for it. I'll prove it to you. You can ask anything you want from me as a sign, and I'll do it, and that way you'll know I'm going to deliver you from this little plot here that Israel and Syria have going on. And of course, what does the king of Judah do? King Ahaz says, no thanks. I don't want to test the Lord. And we get this response of God. It's just kind of like, oh, how much longer am I going to have to deal with these people? They're driving me insane. God is upset here. Well, what's going on with King Ahaz? I think it's pretty clear that he just doesn't trust in the Lord. I think part of what we don't see here is that he trusts in other things. King Ahaz probably has this idea that maybe Assyria, the nation of Syria, is going to come down and save him and attack Israel and Syria. But it's not just that he's being respectful of the Lord here and he doesn't want to test him. Maybe he just doesn't believe what Isaiah is saying. He doesn't really care to put his faith in God. But whatever is going on with King Ahaz here, God in his great mercy gives a sign anyways. And in chapter 7, he talks about this child who is going to be born, who's going to be called Emmanuel, God with us. And the birth of this child is going to mark the time that God is going to deliver them from this threat. Chapter 9, in sort of a similar vein, talks about the birth of this child who is going to be the future king, who is going to be a king whose reign will know no end, who's going to bring peace, who is going to be the mighty king, the mighty counselor, the prince of peace. Both of these prophecies are prophecies of deliverance, of God saying to Judah, you're in a mess, you're in a tough spot, things are rotten, but I am going to save you, and I'm giving you this sign. I'm going to save you through this child who is born of a virgin, and who is going to bring forgiveness and righteousness and deliverance and clean up this huge, huge mess. I imagine at this time, the people of Judah and the people of Israel looking around and thinking, who in the world could clean up the mess that we've gotten ourselves into? And the answer is really nobody was able to clean up that mess except for God. And so we read these passages today that remind us that Christ was sent for our deliverance. He was sent to save us from the mess that we've gotten ourselves into. And absolutely no one, no man on earth, anyone could have delivered us from this mess. There's no politician and no king that would be able to straighten this thing out. God came himself. The Son of God came to be God with us. the one who we could put our trust in. King Ahaz refused to put his faith in the fact that God was with them and he was able to deliver them. And that's why we have this symbol of this child, Emmanuel. We have to trust and cling in him today to be our deliverer. Nothing else. Nothing else in this world is going to deliver us except for that one, the King who will reign forever and ever. And the increase of his kingdom, of his dominion, will know no end. He will purify us, clean us. I am thankful just to read these passages today, to dwell on the goodness of our God and our King, of Jesus Christ, our Messiah, the one who delivered us from our mess, and the one who will reign forever and ever. God bless you guys.